What is poppin', everyone? Today, I'm gonna show you how I made this drawing of a big fat dragon. So take your seat, grab your popcorn, or don't, I don't really care, and enjoy the video. So for this drawing, I started out by blocking out the basic shapes of my dragon, which is of course round, because our dragon is a bit more on the Discord mod side of body types. I don't discriminate. And I did this just to make sketching a bit easier, because I can just trace over this when I'm done. As you can see, the head is darker than the rest of the body, and this is just so that it's easier to distinguish. So I made his tail a bit longer and finally traced over the whole thing. This is when I can actually add some detail, like this little neck thing and spikes. And then I'm just gonna slightly adjust some more proportions. Now before we start coloring the dragon, we'll need to add a background. And everybody knows that every dragon needs a medieval village to burn down. So that's exactly what we'll be making. I'll start by making a basic silhouette, kind of like what I did with the dragon. Then I'll draw the shadows and highlights in a kind of splotchy manner before refining it. Now I'm just adding some little details like windows and this area sticking out. I'm really just making this up as I go and adding random colors where I think it needs them. And last but not least, I'll be finishing up the shading and we're done. Almost. We still need to copy and paste it, make it a bit darker, and now we're done. And after that, we'll start coloring our dragon. We'll just fill him in with this yellow orangish color and start adding some highlights and shadow with the color layer on Alpha Lock. I had the light source be coming from the top, meaning his underside will be in shadow. I then blended it out, making sure it's not too blended, even though I do think I may have blended it a little bit too much. I also wanted to give our dragon a pattern, and how I did this is drawing the pattern on a new layer with the clipping mask turned on. Then I would turn down the opacity and set that layer to multiply. Oh, and by the way, I'm doing this on Procreate, just so you know. Now I'm gonna add some texture. I've always struggled with giving my drawings texture, but I'll just show you how I did it here. But quick warning, the way I did it was insanely tedious. I literally drew every individual scale and traced it over with shadows and highlights. This was like 15 minutes of my life that I am not getting back. Please subscribe. So far, the drawing is looking pretty good, but for some reason the dragon is looking a little bare, a little bit plain. But not to worry, I can give him a little color by adding a tan belly, and of course we can't forget about the wings. But before we go on, let's add some more to our background. I had this genius idea to try and hand draw a smoke cloud until I realized that it ended up looking like poop flavored cotton candy and just used the Procreate cloud brush instead. But anyways, that means it's time to work on the wings. My plan is to give it a little bit of a gradient. It might make it look a little bit transparent, I don't know. So I drew my base color on the spots where I wanted it, set that layer to Alpha Lock, and used an airbrush for the gradient. I'm sure that there's an easier way to do this, but this is just the only way I know. After adding some shading and highlights, it was time to draw the tears in his wings. Guys, we're literally just under halfway done, and this drawing is already starting to come together. Next, I drew the spikes on his back, and of course shaded them with my favorite flat brush, then blended it out. Okay, my initial idea was to give the background a little gradient. You know, make it look a little faded. But then I realized, I need to give this drawing a bit of contrast. So I made the background blue while the dragon would be orange. But before one of my favorite parts of this drawing, I went back to the background just to give it a little depth. And when I was done, I added some highlights to the spikes on the neck and a little shadow too. And then I gave the wings a bit of blemishments. I drew on a bit of red on the wings, and this was because of subsurface scattering, which gives it a bit more of a transparent look and kind of looks like light is shining through. Here's before and after. Subtle, I know. Which brings us to one of my favorite parts, the fire. Wherever there's a dragon, there's always fire, so of course I had to add it. To draw the fire, I started with a base color of red and layered on orange, then yellow, and really just kept adding to it. I added a bit of flames coming out of it and was done with the first fire. Yeah, I made a second one, but before I did that, I added highlights to the spikes, made the wings cast a little shadow, and gave the background a bit of a bluer tone. I also added some motion blur to the wings and the tail. And now it's time for the second flame. I used the same method that I did for the last one, but except this time I used a slightly different shape. When I was done, I blended it out and set the fire layer to multiply. We're getting so close to the big reveal and just need to add some small finishing touches. Next, I drew the eye and also added some smoke coming from the fire. I also wanted to add some sparks too. I also needed to give this dragon a mouth, so I quickly added some lips and teeth. There. I added some more light coming from the fire and also decided to add some snow. And after some small color adjustments, we were done. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.